I'm 96, and before I'm gone for good, I need to say this out loud. Final messages. Walter, message 1. My name is Walter. I'm 96, and for most of my life, I was a librarian, back when libraries were full of footsteps and questions. People came in carrying lists, worries, half-remembered titles. They needed help finding something. I understood that feeling. I liked order. I liked shelves that made sense, labels that stayed where they belonged, the quiet that settled over a room like dust. I believed silence was a kind of discipline, a way to keep life from spilling over. I thought if I lived carefully, nothing would fall apart. I was wrong, but not in the way people expect. There wasn't one terrible event. No shouting match that ended everything. No betrayal. No explosion. Just a slow, patient erosion, like water wearing down stone. The kind of change you don't notice until you look up and realize the shape of your life is different. My wife's name was Anne. We built a home out of routine. Breakfast at the same time. Evenings with the radio low. Conversations that stayed polite, contained. We loved each other, I think just in the smallest voices. I assumed that was enough. When Anne was upset, I gave her space. I told myself that was respect. When she wanted to talk about something heavy, I waited for the moment to pass. I told myself I was keeping things calm. I believed restraint was the same thing as care. We had a son, Mark. He grew up in a house where nothing was loud. No slammed doors. No raised voices. No big displays of emotion. I thought that meant he was safe. When he became distant as a teenager, I assumed it was a phase. Teenagers pull away. That's what they do. I didn't ask too many questions. I didn't want to pry. I didn't want to push. I had a rule I never spoke aloud, but lived by all the same. If I stay quiet, nothing will break. That was the biggest lie of my life. Because silence doesn't prevent the break. It only hides the first crack. Anne grew older. I grew older. We moved through the years with the same careful distance, like two people walking side by side in a narrow hallway, never quite turning toward each other. When she got sick, I sat with her, steady and present, the way I had always been. He held her hand. I adjusted her blankets. I watched the hours pass. There were things I could have said, but the words felt unfamiliar in my mouth, like a language I never learned. After she was gone, the house stayed quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, only empty. Mark came by, and we sat at the kitchen table with the hum of the refrigerator filling the spaces where conversation might have been. We looked at each other, and neither of us knew how to begin. That was how it always started. Or didn't start. I told myself he needed time. I told myself I shouldn't intrude. I told myself that love could exist without being spoken. So I continued the pattern I had practiced for decades. I reached out in small, careful ways. A brief message. A polite check-in. Nothing too emotional. Nothing too heavy. I stayed on the surface where it felt safer. And life, as it does, kept moving forward. Years passed in increments, like pages turning. Holidays arrived and left. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became less frequent. I watched relationships thin out the way old paper does, fragile at the edges. Even now, at 96, I can feel the habit in my bones. The instinct to hold back. The reflex to swallow what matters most. I spent my life believing silence was protection. And before I realized it, I'd built my whole world inside it. Silence became my default language. The way some people reach for laughter, I reached for restraint. When something hurt, I folded it inward. When something mattered, I told myself it could wait. There would always be another day, another dinner, another quiet moment where the right words might arrive. But the right words never arrive on their own. They have to be chosen, spoken, risked. Instead, I kept living carefully. After Anne died, I tried to remain the same man I had always been, steady, undemanding, easy to be around. I told myself grief should be private, that asking for comfort was a burden, that Mark had his own life, his own responsibilities, and I shouldn't pull him back into mine. So I reached out in the smallest ways possible. A text here, a voicemail there, simple sentence, neutral question, nothing that might shake the surface. Mark would respond, sometimes, but his replies were short, polite, almost automatic. Hope you're doing okay, Dad. Sir, busy week. Talk soon. And words that sounded like a form being filed. And I let it be. Because I didn't want to push him. Because I didn't want to break what little was left. The pattern was familiar. I would hesitate, he would drift, and the distance between us would grow without either of us naming it. I kept believing that staying quiet was the kindest option. That giving space was the same thing as giving love. Time passed like that, soft and unnoticed. Then, on my 90th birthday, something arrived that should have mattered more than it did. I woke up to rain tapping against the windows, steady and cold. The house smelled faintly of dust and old books, the way it always did. I made tea and sat at the table, listening to the clock tick in the next room. The day felt ordinary, too ordinary. In the afternoon, I opened the front door and found a card on the porch. Just sitting there. No knock. No footsteps retreating. Only the wet air and the quiet. I picked it up slowly. The envelope was slightly damp at the edges. Mark's handwriting was unmistakable, even after all those years. For a moment, my chest tightened with something like hope. Inside, the message was simple. Happy birthday, Dad. Hope it's a good one. That was all. No signature. No love. No invitation to call. Next to the card was a wrapped box, the paper darkened in spots where the rain had touched it. I carried it inside and set it on the table. And then I just stared at it. The room was still. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional drip from my coat onto the floor. The silence felt heavier than usual, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I didn't open the box for hours. It sat there between me and everything I didn't know how to say. The smell of wet cardboard rose slowly as the wrapping softened. Outside, cars passed now and then, their tires hissing on the road. Somewhere far off, a dog barked once, then stopped. I kept waiting for the moment to feel clear, for the gift to feel like a bridge, for the card to feel like a hand reaching back. But all I felt was the distance. Finally, as evening settled and the light turned grey, I tore the paper open. Inside was a sweater, plain, soft, the kind I wore when Mark was small, when he'd sit beside me and lean in without needing words. He used to press his cheek into the wool when he got sleepy. I held it in my hands and tried to understand what it meant. Was it affection? Obligation? Guilt? I couldn't tell. Because we hadn't truly spoken in over a year, the sweater smelled faintly of fabric store, dye and rain. I pressed it against my lap, listening to the clock tick louder and louder in the quiet. And the silence, as always, said nothing back. That was the first painful moment. Not because of what Mark did, but because of what I couldn't reach. I sat there with the sweater folded over my knees, feeling like I was holding a symbol written in a language I no longer understood. The house remained perfectly still, as if it, too, was waiting for me to finally speak. But I didn't. Weeks turned into months. Life continued in small repetitions. I went to the grocery store. I watered the plants Anne used to care for. I watched the seasons change through the same window, each one arriving quietly, each one leaving without ceremony. And then, a few months ago, the second painful moment came. My granddaughter visited. She's a teenager now. Bright, quick, always half, in another world, through the screen of her phone. She sat across from me at the kitchen table while I poured tea into 2 cups. The steam rose between us, soft and white, curling into the air like something trying to become visible. I set out sugar, biscuits, the way Anne always used to. For a while we spoke politely. School, weather, small things. Then her phone buzzed, and she answered without thinking, her voice casual, careless, in the way young people can be when they don't know they're holding a knife. As I stood at the counter, spoon in hand, I heard her say, "I don't really know Grandpa. He's nice, but we don't talk." The words landed with a strange, quiet force, like a door closing. I froze. The spoon trembled slightly above the sugar bowl. I didn't move. I didn't breathe properly. For a moment, the entire room seemed to go hollow. I could hear everything. The faint hiss of the kettle cooling, the tick of the wall clock, the soft buzz of her phone speaker. I stayed standing there unseen as she continued talking, her tone light, unaware she had just named my whole life in one sentence. "I mean, he's always been like that," she said. Quiet. And quiet. That word again. The object in my hand felt suddenly heavy, ridiculous. A small silver spoon, ordinary, harmless, yet it was the only thing anchoring me to the present. When I returned to the table, she looked up and smiled, sweet and normal. "Thanks, Grandpa." I made it easy. The tea sat between us. But it had gone cold. And somehow, the room felt colder too. That was the second painful moment. Not because she was cruel, but because she was honest. And in her honesty, I saw myself clearly, not as a peaceful man, not as a gentle man, but as a closed door. That was when the realization finally arrived. Not dramatic, not loud, but certain. It is not enough to be present. You have to be open. I thought silence was love. I thought staying calm meant staying safe. But silence isn't safety. It's an empty room that keeps dropping a degree. I set the spoon down. The clink was too loud, and in that sound, I understood something I'd avoided my whole life. Silence doesn't protect love. It starves it. I spent decades believing that if I didn't argue, if I didn't burden anyone with my sadness or needs, the people I loved would simply understand. They didn't. They felt alone. And now, at 96, I live with the weight of all the conversations I never had. So listen to me. Truly listen if you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my quiet. If you think you're protecting your marriage by not speaking, if you think giving space is parenting, if you think politeness and routine can carry love forever, it can't. Silence does not keep people. It only delays the loss. It leaves a clean table and an empty chair. One day you will look up and the people you love will feel like strangers living just beyond your reach. You will hold gifts you can't interpret. You will hear truths said about you that you never meant to become true. Say something, even if your voice shakes, even if it's messy, even if it breaks the calm you worship. Because the coldest ending is not death. The coldest ending is being alive and being unknown. On-screen text, 2 seconds. If this hit you, follow for the next message. Pinned comment, final messages #2 playlist link.